So this video was actually voted on by my patrons over on Patreon. Which again, if you haven't already, hit the link below and head on over to my Patreon, where you guys can vote in polls for videos like these, as well as check out exclusive content. And if you hit the 4th tier, you can send me requests for me to do here on YouTube. But anyway, yeah, so this was a poll that was sent out, and this one won by 1 vote, and it was actually a video that I didn't think was going to win, but I'm kind of glad it was, because it's usually I don't get to talk about like subjects like these. And that is the importance of Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe. As for the other 3 videos, what if the Indominus Rex was on the 06 version of Skull Island? What characters could hold Mjolnir? And could the Team Ruby survive on the 9 realms? Now, this is this is going to be a fun video, because here's the thing. I've always had like a bit of a soft spot for Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe, because it was my first Mortal Kombat game. I know. Yeah. Yeah. So, I had always a limited knowledge of Mortal Kombat. I always, like, before then, I knew Scorpion, Sub-Zero, like, the main cast. I heard the song, and I'd seen the original movie. But I had never gotten that far into Mortal Kombat, but I was always a crossover guy. So when I heard that Mortal Kombat was fighting the DC Universe, a universe I know very well, I decided to get very balls deep into Mortal Kombat lore, and I really loved it. And it was actually like, this game was not only important for me, but I'm going to talk about more about the importance for both respective franchises, for both Mortal Kombat and the DC Universe in this game. Now, as we all know, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe was not a well-received game. It was by no means a well-received fighting game. It was kind of panned by fans and critics for not going full force into Mortal Kombat lore, or, you know, Mortal Kombat gore, I should say. And the fighting was kind of clunky, it was a little stiff, but, and I will admit, you know, replaying that game recently and playing MK vs. DC again is kind of like, oof, this is rough. Like, this is some rough gameplay. Having said that, though, you have to understand, at that time, there had not been a lot of, Mortal Kombat, the word couldn't get out of my mouth. There hadn't been a lot of Mortal Kombat games or DC games. Remember, the last Mortal Kombat game we had at that point was Armageddon. And then, for DC games, I think at this point, at least Arkham Asylum was either out or coming out. So there was kind of a scarcity for both Mortal Kombat and DC Universe games. There was really nothing. So the fact that both got a game series from NetherRealm Studios, which at the time had gone to Warner Brothers Games, was a big deal. It was a very big deal to have, you know, something to remind both fans that, hey, Mortal Kombat and DC Comics are here. They're back. And that was the thing I think a lot of people forget about, and that's why I think one of the major things of why this game was so important, first off, was the fact it was telling you this is a new Mortal Kombat game. There was not a Mortal Kombat game since Armageddon. Like, that was it. And to have a new one made the Mortal Kombat fans really excited. And some people were already like putting up the red flag with the DC fighting the DC universe. But then again, I will say, I do get why diehard Mortal Kombat fans were kind of really apprehensive at the idea of fighting the DC universe. Because again, they were already like dreading a T rating, which they eventually did say, yeah, this is going to be T rated, this is going to be a little more PG-13 than hard R. And I understand why, because the DC Comics execs were more or less concerned, like the Warner Brothers executives were very much concerned at the idea of killing Superman or Superman killing. Until, 2013 when Superman snapped Zod's neck, but that's a different story. Or, when Ben Affleck Batman's going around murdering people like a fucking psychopath. Again, that's a totally different story. And that'll actually, we'll cycle back to DC characters in Mortal Kombat in a bit. But that was the thing, is that, yeah, it was going to be T-rated, but would you have a game, or would you not have a game at all? That's kind of what that was kind of my mindset looking back on this, is that here you have a game that, yes, it is Mortal Kombat Light. It's Mortal Kombat Light, and the finishers are not fun. A lot of them are not really good, because they really had to edit them down. In fact, one of Kano's fatalities in here just straight up sucks. But there are some classic ones, like the arcade fall, Toasty. There are some fine ones here. There are some little gems here, and Joker's fatality, for what it is the gun fatality. Yeah, it's pretty fun. That's a fun one. And I think that, yeah, they did reference it in MK9. That's the other thing we have to talk about, is that this game was the springboard. This was the total springboard for not only the the return of Mortal Kombat games, but also it gave us a new fighting game series in Injustice. Yeah, without Mortal Kombat versus DC and the moderate... It did have some success. You have to understand that it did have some success to a degree. But the main reason why this game, I think, has so much importance for modern-day gamers, even though it's not really well looked back on, is that this gave us MK and Injustice. This gave us MK9 to MK9 to 11. And hopefully 12. But it also gave us, in the Injustice games and the Injustice hell, it gave us the Injustice DC universe, which has been a long-running comic book series. You also have a multitude of characters from Mortal Kombat getting guest characters. One of the reasons why Ed Boon wanted to do Mortal Kombat versus DC, because he loves crossovers, and he was having so much fun at the idea of having his characters fight characters he loves. And it's kind of obvious from Injustice that everyone at NetherRealm were huge DC comic nerds for all the stuff they did there. And then, that's how we also got heavier into guest characters. Again, I have to stress that without MK versus DC, then, we wouldn't have Fred. We may not have the idea of having Freddy in the game, or Kratos, or RoboCop, or Jason, or the Alien, or the Predator, or... You see where I'm going? Yeah. And there was a DC character that shows up in MK11, the Joker. The Joker. It was literally gotten to a point where DC was like, all right, you can have a character in the M-rated a DC character in the M-rated Mortal Kombat games. And yeah, it was Joker. I hope when we get to MK12, when we get to MK12, it'll be like Deathstroke, or I'm actually pushing for Lobo the most, personally. But yeah, that showed, you can do fatalities and whatnot with DC characters, or getting finished by Mortal Kombat characters. And hell, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Raiden showed up in Injustice, along with the fucking Ninja Turtles, Hellboy, and yeah. Fuck yeah. Again, it all goes back to Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe, which, again, not a great game, but there was a major importance to it. I think that's the thing why I wanted to make this video, was because this video, that game is almost like video game history. It's a precursor to everything that was to come from NetherRealm at that point. That's what I'm trying to get across in this video, is that this is a story about two franchises. One was reborn and another was born from a game that was mediocre at best. And to be fair, I still like this game, even though, yeah, I've said that it's kind of clunky and whatnot. Excuse me. But the big deal is that this game, it's still fun. It's still kind of fun. Hell, I remember when I first got the game, and I brought it over to a friend's house, after I recently got MK vs. DC, I brought it over to a friend's house, and they were all basically playing Mario, I think it was a Mario game. I think it was either Mario Party or Mario Kart. And then when I introduced Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, everyone started playing it like crazy. Like, they all wanted to play Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe, and everyone was saying, this game is awesome. I know, we were dumb fucking kids. Don't bother. But yeah, that was what I'm trying to make, is that it not only had an impact for me, it had an impact on the gaming industry. And again, a lot of the mechanics, some of them not good, but some of them were brought over to both games. Some of those mechanics that did work, especially for on the Injustice side, a lot of those game mechanics were implemented into Injustice. Some in Mortal Kombat, but yeah, not a lot. And yeah, again, it made people talking. It made people start talking. It's like, why can't we have a new Mortal Kombat game? Ed Boon went, okay, boom, here's MK9. Why don't we have a DC Universe fighting game? Boom, here's Injustice. Oh, and here's some comic book stuff to increase the lore. Have fun. So yeah, I know it's not a well-regarded game, but without it, we would not be where we are in fighting games without that game. So the next time you see that you see MK versus DC, give it a little salute. Like, there you go. So anyway, you guys tell me in the comments below, what do you guys think the importance is for Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe? Are you guys agree with me? Do you guys disagree with me? Just comment below, let me know. I'm very curious to see how this video plays out. And as always, if you haven't already, head on over to the link below, hit the link and head on over to my Patreon for exclusive content. And if you hit the 4th tier, you can send me requests for videos to do here on YouTube. But other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.